growing weary of running from room to room, practicing one-tooth insurance-driven dentistry? Then stay tuned for the latest episode of The Lionhearted, where Dr. Stephen Rasner will hand you the blueprint for what many call the gold standard of general practice dentistry.
Hi everybody, I'm Dr. Steve Rasner. I want to speak to you about something I'm very passionate about, the Rasner Institute. I know many of you have heard me say over the years that the best way to get away from a toxic insurance practice and back to a fee-for-service practice is to have the following 4 skills: oral sedation, atraumatic extractions, site development or bone grafting, and both surgical and prosthetic implant dentistry. I also know that many of you have taken excellent programs around the United States where you've learned the didactic portion of these skills. Well, guess what? The Rasner Institute is dedicated to helping you take those skills from the classroom into the operatory. That's right. If you have a license anywhere in the United States, you can come to our institute and either a 1-day or a 2-day program, you do the surgeries live. We prepare you for them. We hold your hands literally if that's what's needed. One thing for sure is you'll leave that program with a newfound confidence and a newfound set of skills that you can use on Monday. Contact the Rasner Institute, and I look forward to taking part in this wonderful journey that we're both on. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Steve Rasner. You're tuned into the Lionhearted Dentist. And we are really literally knocking on the door of next year, 2021. And many of us couldn't be happier to see the year of the pandemic come to an end, me included. But I got to tell you, I'm going to spend some time with this podcast and next podcast sharing with you the discovery of the principles that I've covered in so many different angles over the last 2 years that literally saved me and my practice during these times. I mean, look, if you've listened to me by now, you know I am one of you, meaning I work full-time. As a full-time clinician, I face a lot of ups and downs that go with running a dental practice. And I come on these podcasts with you to try to share caveats and new things I've discovered and old things that have worked for me. That's the basis of the Lionhearted Dentist series. But I am more sure than ever that many of the things that I try to get you to experiment with and make changes in your practice are exactly what you should be doing. I got to tell you, I don't like to come on here and sound at all bragging. I don't think that's my style, but I've really had some really good months, including December. And it's staggering, it's shocking to me, because all around the United States and abroad, the pandemic has gotten worse, really worse. So that would obviously impact people from doing things that they might normally do. It would inhibit them. And on top of that, I think a lot of people are still scared economically of spending money. And I've got to tell you, when I end my months and I review the numbers, or I go into a given week and it seems like kind of a dull week coming up, I don't see any potential when I look at the number of new patients or recall patients and things like that, which, by the way, is a big thing for us to talk about, because that is absolutely a barometer for me of what's coming. That's why you've heard me on so many occasions make a big deal when things are flat about you being in touch with what is your recall program in your office. I mean, literally, don't blow me off right now because it's too important. I know recall sounds very unsexy, but it happens to all of us. Every practice listening right now endures that problem of patients a myriad of patients you did amazing jobs on, patients that you had nothing but good experiences with, fall out the back door somehow. It just happens to all of us. And so one of the cornerstones of the Lionhearted Dentist is attacking that weakness in our practices. And I got to tell you, it comes back time and again by me implementing policies that I've covered on these podcasts before. And, I did it recently, so I don't really want to do it with this podcast. But when I look and see on a given week coming up that I have 4 or 5 recall patients, that means patients that haven't been in to see us in at least 6 months. And quite honestly, usually like around a year, they have fallen out, particularly in the year of the pandemic. I got to tell you, it's exciting to me and makes me fulfilled in anticipation as me seeing a brand new patient. So I do look ahead at those things. And I have to tell you that it's that cornerstone and others that I'm going to cover with you in this podcast and the next that you've got to have down firm going forward in 2021 if you want long-lasting, enduring change. And those 3 things, let me just give you my address and my email address in case some of you want to reach out to me, and I would encourage you to do so, please. It's my name, drrasner@aol.com. I know, it's pretty geeky and old-fashioned, but that is my email, and I'm probably not going to change it at this point. And if you want me to cover anything, sometimes you got to remind me a couple times, but I've been doing these podcasts now a couple years with you. In the beginning, I wasn't sure how long it'll go, and it seems like I got this special niche following across the globe that tune in monthly. And for some of you, I'm positive it's making an impact, and it should, because it's real life, real world stuff that I share with you. When I look back, we just finished the 3rd week in December here in New Jersey in the United States. And I got to tell you, my practice collected over 6 digits. Didn't treatment plan, that's what we collected in the office. It's staggering to me. Maybe, I don't know. I don't go out there and ask what other dentists are doing, but that's me, 2 hygienists, and this particular week I had an associate on one day of the 4 days I was there. So when I look and see how that happened, 3 things just jump out at me, and that's what I want to talk about with you. One of the things is having and defining, which I've talked to you about, a giant nucleus of a practice. That should be one of your goals. And I'm going to come back and define that. I've done it on other podcasts, but it's too important and it's too relevant right now to carrying me to really extraordinary success for me not to rehash it. It's worth me rehashing with you. The second thing is giving the type of case presentation, whether that be a new patient or whether that be a returning patient, a recall patient, having a case presentation that is so powerful that it never stops paying dividends. And let me explain that for a minute. What that really means to me when I say that to you is somebody comes in either returning or new. They tell you what's going on. You go through your protocol, your process. When I do that, even if they don't accept treatment, which an extraordinary number of them do, and I'm talking sometimes huge cases. I had a $35,000 non-implant case this past Wednesday out of nowhere. And I'll gladly share that with you in a few minutes. When I look back, it's those patients that accept, those patients that have to think about it, but they all leave with a good taste in their mouth. Nobody leaves with thinking I tried to jam something down their throat. I need you to believe that. I go online and I see so much in social media about techniques and tactics and strategies. I've even heard speakers, well-known speakers on social media, tell you what to say when they say this or that. That is not where I'm coming from. And, you know, the dental gods strike me with thunder if I'm giving you bad advice. But I'm going to tell you something. You need to hear me loud and clear. I don't know if I've always said what I'm about to tell you, but I certainly have said it for quite a long time, and it feels good. And I think it would feel good to most of you. Sometime in my presentation, when I'm talking to a patient that looks like we're going to have a substantial treatment plan to talk about, I will say, listen, I got to tell you something. I'm not here to sell you anything. I don't want to even come close to being that dentist. What I'm doing is I'm doing what I should be doing, and that's I'm educating you. You came in here with a specific issue. I want you to know that my job, I feel, is to connect with you, is to provide you different options and make it really understandable where those options will lead you by me speaking about it, by me showing you models and photographs, etc. You know, but I'm not here to talk you into anything. Sometimes I'll say, and I'll say it like this, and in no way am I trying to be disrespectful, but I don't care if you do this case or not. That's not where my head's at. I want you to do it if you want to do it. And I'm looking at them and talking in a tone just like I'm talking to you right now. And that's the absolute truth. And you know something? It feels good. It feels right. I don't think I said that early in my career. I don't know when I subtly made that change, but it actually feels good to articulate and hear those words coming out because it lets their defenses down. I mean, let's not play around with this right now. We both know that there are, and I'll also say this, by the way. I'll say, you know, and I'll say this every time, you got to understand something. When you play tennis, you have an arsenal of different options to do things, whether it's a lob, a backhand, a forehand, and you bring them out when intuitively it seems the right time to do whatever. Maybe that's an oversimplification. I've been playing tennis for a few years, so, and I mean just a few years, and I stink. I'm trying to get good, by the way. It's the same thing with treatment planning or case presentation. There's not a one wrap thing I do. It just is intuitive, just like it is for all the things that you've done. So don't think that you can't implement this or think that you have to say this every time to a patient. But sometimes I'll say this, and this comes off the heels of what I just said to you. I'll say, you know, I think there's two kinds of dentists primarily out there today. You have an overzealous dentist who feels the need, perhaps sometimes, to crown teeth that maybe don't have to be crowned, or fill every stained or pitted tooth that they see. And some of them, it's based on their education, and it's really, sometimes it's from their heart, and it's what they believe. And sometimes it's just being overzealous. And I'm sorry for those of you listening, if you think I'm picking on our profession, it's just true. It's absolutely true. And then I'll also say, and then there's another dentist that I've always called good old Dr. Joe, and patients get this. And I'll say, he never tells you that you need anything. He watches everything. And you love him because you never have to do anything. He makes you feel that you don't have to treat anything. So you like that. You don't spend any money. I say that. You don't spend any time in his chair. And then he retires or sells or moves or something. And now you're maybe older in life and you go to a new dentist, and sometimes legitimately you have a mouthful of untreated pathology and you had no idea. And that is not where we're going to go either. So my job is just to tell you the truth, what I would do and why I would do what I would do. And then see if we can make that work in your world. And I try intuitively, I'm telling the patient this, to be conservative with you. That's my angle. When I see you on my schedule and I'm walking to your room, my thoughts are nothing ever like, oh, I hope this is a big case. It's not the way it is. Well, I actually want you to be my lifetime patient. And I want to connect. And I want you to feel the value of where you've come. Now, I do say things like that. And it's not rushed. I got to tell you, that's what I mean by the big nucleus, because the big nucleus of your patient family are patients that came into you and did not accept treatment. Sometimes they came to you once and they disappear for months or years. You think they didn't like you, but they did like you. And I know this for a fact, not all of them. They just weren't ready for the treatment you presented at that time. And then there's patients in that nucleus that pretty much always do what you recommend. You know, you recommend a crown, they do a crown. A root canal crown, they do it. Even an implant. And they're lovely, there's just not enough of those patients. And then there's patients in between, and you know that's the truth. They come in, they do things, and they disappear. Again, getting back to, that's why the recall, having a system. You got to look at this immediately in your practice if you feel you've stalled. Because the recall patient is every bit as good, or better actually, than the brand new patient. And there's real reasons for that. I mean, they've come back to you. They know a lot about you. You know, in my particular case, I'm certainly not the Kmart when it comes to fees of dentistry. You know, we haven't even raised our crown fee in God knows how long. And it is probably 25% higher than any other place they can go locally. So you got to work for that. It's got to be palpable. It's got to be something they feel. And it's absolutely doable. Do you get me? I don't know if any of you have ever stopped. You probably have many more important things to do. Googled, see where I practice in southern New Jersey, Cumberland County. It's been very good to me. I'm not putting them down. Dentists get mad at me when I say what I'm saying to you. When I talk about the challenged economic area that I practice in, but it's damn right worse than I can even describe to you. And yet, again, you're listening to me right now. It is a fee-for-service practice, meaning no insurance. And on top of that, that'd be one thing if my fees were really low. But they can't be low and do the type of care, and when I say that to you, I mean having the support staff I have, the labs I use, the time that we spend on everything we do. It's just an impossibility to be low. I would just, the practice would fail. Financially, it would fail. And then, so the three things are having a big nucleus. And I want to expand on that as much time as we have in this podcast. Refining our case presentations so that they're just the best potential lifetime patient practice builder we could ever. Think about that. I'm telling you to put so much energy and cross all your T's and dot your I's into this masterful moment with this patient, because that's what it is, of case presentation. That moment you come in for the first time or on a recall patient, what's going down in that visit? What are you saying? And I'm saying to you, whether they accept treatment or not, you are gaining trust from that patient by your style, by your sincerity. And there's ways that we need to beat up again, go over and over and over, that you can very much achieve what I'm saying to you. And then, so the big nucleus, case presentation. And the third thing I haven't mentioned yet, and it's certainly not the fun part of being the leader of the office, but the onus of being a relentless leader. And what I mean by that is that your work is never done. It's just not. No matter how many times and how much excitement you get into implementing something new that improves the quality of your office, if you don't keep pursuing it, reminding people being your staff, of how we do things around here and why we do things the way we do them, that never ends. It doesn't. Because the reason it doesn't is it's really, really difficult to find team members that are as invested in. I know you're going to tell me that you have some, and I get it. So do I. It's hard to find team members that are as invested in the future of the practice as you are. And of course, that's a loaded statement, because how do you get them motivated? How do you get them invested? And we've talked about all these things, but I'm bringing it all to a head again, because when I have these days that are going by in the last 3 months, October, November, December of 2020, during a time that arguably is the most challenging time in this generation of dentists, and maybe for you, younger dentists, for you as well, you just don't know it yet. You'll look back in 20 years and remember, when it's 2040, you'll remember what 2020 was like and how incredibly challenging it was to gain confidence and trust, and people worried about catching a virus and all these. Yes. Even in that time, I have to share with you that the principles that you listen to weekly on this podcast didn't just carry me. We're pretty much breaking records. It's unbelievable to me. And it's every single thing I've talked about. It's stuff, it's the team. And the team gets engaged by me reminding the team. I mean, it's constant. It's tiring. It's frustrating when I do it. Because, I did it this week. This particular week, I told you, we had an outstanding. We had 2 days out of 4 where we collected over $35,000. 2 of 4 days. So the week was well over 100. Yet, there was moments in the week where I was so frustrated with my team because they dropped the ball on things that we've talked about for years. Why? Let me get specific. It's not fair for me to generalize. I know your time's valuable, but you know me. I get into these things. I get emotional. I guess I want you to know that I have the challenges that you have too. I do. And one of the biggest challenges is whether your team is of 3 or 4, which I don't know. It does sound a little easier than my team of 18 to 20. And I say 18 to 20 because they fluctuate. I don't let things go. I have a lot of closed door meetings. I don't mean I yell and I scream. I remind people of what I expect and why I told them something once I told them that way back in an interview, their interview. And that doesn't change. This is how we exist if you want to exist. And the payoff is blah, blah, blah. And quite honestly, the payoff for your team, if they're listening, it's a wonderful thing to practice without pressure. It's a wonderful thing to have no equipment, to have a boss that can contribute to a 401k, a boss that can be flexible because he's not worried all the time about every week because he's not money strapped. So you may want to take a course or do something that really on the surface interferes with his operations or her operations. But the Lionhearted dentist leader always embraces anything that's beneficial for his team, whether it benefits his organization or not long. And you can't think like that when you're having week after week or month after month where you don't even know how you're going to pay payroll. So this is doable. Let me start, because I know I'm well into this and I like to keep these under 30 minutes. And as I said, I'm going to continue hammering this with this podcast and next, but so it's going to spill into next week as well. But let me just start with going back to what I mean when I say creating a giant practice nucleus. The giant nucleus consists of the patients that go with everything you say. I've already told you that. That's a given. We all have those patients. The patient that is just not there yet. So let me explain that patient for a minute. You present a treatment plan, and the patient cannot go with that treatment plan. That's many of mine, but they can accept some of the treatment plan, which is very, very hard, because a lot of times what that ends up being clinically is you creating a restoration, a single crown, a 3-unit bridge that is sandwiched into their existing occlusion, follow me, which might be a maloccluded dentition. So you're not able to achieve optimal occlusion because the patient can't do, when I say they can't financially afford to do what would be the appropriate thing. And that's not every patient. And it's not as big as a deal if it's a single crown, I get it. But if you think for 1 second that I have a practice where I give you this what I think is magical journey from the time they call my office to the time I walk in that room and what goes down, if you think they all say yes to everything, even the case I alluded to a few minutes ago of $35,000 this week was not their whole mouth. It didn't include a couple areas posteriorly that they'll need implants in, because that's what's indicated. You may say, why? Because I don't remember off the top of my head whether it was 2 or 3, but that would have meant another $8,000 to $10,000 of investment. And there is, quite honestly, a breaking point, a limit. It's true in everything in business. Some of you might be driving a foreign car. Why aren't you driving the best foreign car of that particular model? Because we all have a line. Now, that's challenging with us in a dental profession because we're not fabricating cars, we're fabricating oral health. And sometimes the answer has to be they can't do anything. But so one of the categories are patients that you can treat safely and responsibly, but they can't do the entire treatment plan. And that really just depends on the pathology of that patient. You've heard me mention before that there's a type of treatment case approach I call putting the fires out. Well, that's a case, for example, of somebody that hasn't come in many years. And by the way, it's all connected with all these podcasts and all my philosophies, because a lot of the patients that come in with substantial need, and by the way, if you think about it, all the cornerstones and factors I've covered over these podcasts and have shared with you from so many different angles all tie in together, because one of the reasons I get cases that I just mentioned where people have to accept a portion of the treatment or can't do the whole treatment is because a lot of them are gigantic treatment plans as a result of what? The what is they came in because of the sedation permit that they know we have, that we have branded for the practice. So I have patients coming in that haven't gone to a dentist in quite a long time. So you heard me say in the past that, yeah, you can do part of what I talk about, and you can have, I can't imagine you doing any of these facets and not having a positive impact on your practice. But, it should be exciting to you to think about the potential explosion of your dental practice. The one you have right now, I don't care how beat up it is or how much horizontal non-growth you've experienced for the last couple of years. We need to get you excited and back on track again simply by committing to some of these cornerstones, as I call them. So why wouldn't you want to do that? Why wouldn't you want to get an oral sedation permit? And to be clear, once you get it, I really need you to try to use the particular cocktail that I use, that I've heard almost no one else use. And I did not invent it, so I was fortunate to have somebody share it with me many years ago. So you can write to me, those of you who haven't, and I'll gladly give you the whole protocol. But again, think about it. I'm attracting those kind of patients. And then they often become patients that did a partial treatment plan, and that's the thing that you have to work on. Like, what is acceptable? Because sometimes the answer is you can do nothing. That's the truth. Sometimes it's all or nothing. I mean, what are you going to do if they have a worn VDO and you can't restore half their mouth? Now, sometimes you can restore a maxillary arch or a hold vertical with composite restorations if they can't do full mouth rehab. There are some ways to compromise that, but not to lose sight of where I was going. So I was telling you, you have patients that accept everything you recommend to them. You have patients that accept a portion of that. And then you have patients that accept nothing, and they're out there in the cloud, so to speak. And they have an experience in your office that I want to be a good one, even if they didn't accept treatment. I can't tell you how many times I have a patient that is a referral from a patient that didn't accept treatment from us. I mean, it happened last week, actually. A giant treatment plan. I mean, really giant. North of $40,000. I didn't want it to be that. I don't even like that at this point in my career. I really don't. And that patient wasn't ready at this time, but she had such a positive experience in the office, she referred to somebody else. Anyway, let's get into the steak and potatoes of this next week, and let's get you excited for a record-breaking 2021. See you next week on The Lionhearted Dentist.